Director of Aboriginal Student Services at Queen's,
Okay.
but I helped several years ago, like 20 years ago, to develop the Aboriginal teacher education program there. And most recently, I've helped to introduce an Indigenous minor. But here in the community, I'm involved in the Longhouse, and I'm a clan mother for the Turtle Clan. So, but I didn't learn that growing up here. My parents were both Anglican. But if you look at our people historically, we're the Fort Hunter Mohawks, which I'm sure someone has already told you. So we came from the Mohawk Valley after the war. When the Treaty of Paris was signed, we lost our homeland. So we spent 7 years at Lachine as refugees because we didn't have anywhere to go. And after 7 years, we were granted this piece of land here. But the people who came at that time were pretty much Christian, but also carried a lot of tradition as well. So what's happened in this community and a lot of other Haudenosaunee communities is that we have people who are both Christians but also follow tradition and culture and do ceremony. Like for me, I was raised in the Anglican Church. Both of my parents were Anglican, and I was I was an adult. By the time I learned about the Longhouse, I was 19 years old. By the time I was 29, I was the clan mother, because there's criteria to be clan mother. You're supposed to be married, you're supposed to have a family, you're supposed to have the language, you're supposed to know about the Tyendinaga, the Great Law, you're supposed to know about all the ceremonies. I didn't have those things. I had some knowledge of ceremony, I had some knowledge of culture and traditions, I had very little knowledge of language. At that point I had my oldest son, but I was probably the best game in town because of what I had gone out and learned myself. That was why the clan asked me to sit as the clan mother then. There was a few families in which tradition was still strong, but I could count them on one hand. But now my children and people of my generation, our grandchildren, some of them have only been raised in the Longhouse. I left here when I went away to school. I came back in the late 80s. And it was at that time there was myself and a few other women who were interested in learning more about tradition, who started bringing in people, traditional teachers, people who carried traditional knowledge. We started to bring them to the community to teach. We started with the songs and the dances because that seemed non-threatening and it was an easy thing to do, but there were a lot of old people in the community at the time who got really angry. They said not to mess around with that stuff. We were going to make trouble. There were people who thought it was like evil. But yeah, so in a period of about a year and a half, we had stirred up a whole bunch of young people who were very interested in learning about who they were as Tyendinaga, you know. They wanted to know the songs, they wanted to know the dances. We started out with a handful of people and a couple of families who would come. I think we were doing it once a week at the time, and they'd come to learn the songs and the dances, and by the end of our period, whatever it was, we had whole families coming. We had that Longhouse for a while and then it got burnt down. There was a lot of turmoil in our community, political turmoil for a while, and personally I think the Longhouse was burned in retribution because there was people who were angry with us because of a stance we had taken. And so we've just rebuilt the new Longhouse, which you've seen. And yeah, we've been in there for a year now, a little over a year, about a year and a half. And we're still working on getting it finished, but it's bigger and better than the last one. That's what we finally said. It was heartbreaking to know that our own people burned our first Longhouse. I can't even explain to you the pain that I felt when that happened, because we'd worked so hard, because we raised all that money ourselves. We didn't take grants from the government or anything like that. It was all raised by fundraising, and we're not wealthy people, so you know, it was a lot of bake sales and spaghetti suppers and walkathons and things that raised that money. It's been difficult because we're not a very big community, and so the Longhouse community within the community is even smaller. So encouraging people, the young people, to come and be part of that sometimes takes a little more encouragement, because unfortunately it places a lot of responsibility on them. When they come and learn, they become responsible for things, you know. And when you're only 14 and you're responsible for doing a speech or singing a song at a ceremony, that can be kind of heavy, right? And you have to do those things with a good mind, because that's what they're taught. That's what we're all taught. Not a lot of people come to the ceremonies all the time, but there's a lot of reasons for that. But I know that the young people are still very interested in learning the language and the songs.